14 years. That's how long billions of dollars in Bitcoin sat frozen in time, completely untouched since the dawn of crypto. This isn't just some random wallet, it's a digital time capsule from the Satoshi era, a time when Bitcoin was worth less than a buck, mined on home computers by a handful of pioneers and cypherpunks, an era wrapped in mystery. And this week, someone finally opened it. $8 billion worth of Bitcoin just moved for the first time since 2011. The entire crypto world held its breath, waiting for the market to crash. We tracked the transactions, followed the money, and what we found wasn't what anyone expected. It led us to a surprising place, revealing a story not about cashing out, but about a brilliant forward thinking strategy. Today, we're going to expose the rumors about the big institution allegedly behind the move, dive into the on chain forensics to show you what really happened, and uncover what this whole event tells us about the wallet's mysterious owner and the future of Bitcoin itself. So, let's start with the moment that sent a jolt through the crypto world. On what seemed like a normal day, blockchain trackers went crazy with an alert. 8 separate wallets, all dormant for nearly 15 years, woke up at the exact same time. Each one transferred exactly 10,000 Bitcoin. That's 80,000 BTC in total, worth a staggering $8 billion, all on the move. To get why this is such a huge deal, you have to understand where these coins came from. These weren't just any Bitcoins, they were Satoshi era coins, picked up back in 2011 when a single Bitcoin cost about 78 cents. This isn't just a whale, this is a Leviathan, an original pioneer who was there when Bitcoin was basically just a wild experiment on some obscure mailing list. When coins that old start moving, the market doesn't just notice, it panics. The fear is always the same, a massive dump. Everyone assumes an early holder, someone who has watched a tiny investment turn into an unbelievable fortune, is finally cashing out. The thinking is, if one of the original believers is selling, it must be a sign the ride is over. This is the ultimate FUD. This fear is so real that analysts have metrics to track it. One of the most important is coin days destroyed, or CDD. Think of it this way. Every day a coin sits still in a wallet, it collects one coin day. A Bitcoin held for 1,000 days has 1,000 coin days. When you spend it, you destroy those days. This metric is smart because it gives more weight to old, patient money moving than it does to frantic day trading. A big spike in CDD usually means a major market shift is coming. And with this 80,000 BTC move, the CDD metric didn't just spike, it went vertical. We're talking about coins that had each been sitting for over 5,000 days. The total number of destroyed coin days was astronomical, one of the largest single events in Bitcoin's history. It was the on-chain equivalent of a seismic shock, a clear signal that a sleeping giant was awake. The community braced for impact. Social media exploded with speculation. Traders got ready for a flash crash. The headlines basically wrote themselves, Satoshi whale dumps billions. And at first, the price reflected that anxiety. While it wasn't a total collapse, the market felt the pressure, and Bitcoin's price wobbled as everyone tried to price in a potential $8 billion sell wall. But then, the crash never came. After the initial jitters, the price stabilized. In fact, on chain data showed plenty of buying pressure and deep liquidity holding the price strong. The market had somehow absorbed the news of an $8 billion whale move without falling apart. This was a head scratcher. A historic whale moves a fortune, the data confirms old coins are in play, but the catastrophe never happens. It left everyone asking 2 questions. First, if the whale wasn't dumping, where did the $8 billion go? And second, who is this person and what's their real plan? The answers are buried in the blockchain, and that's where we look next. To figure this out, we need to follow the breadcrumbs on the blockchain, and the story the data tells is way more interesting than a simple cash out. It's a story of careful planning, perfect execution, and a deep understanding of Bitcoin. Let's rewind to 2011. The 8 wallets were created in a different Bitcoin era. Back then, the standard address type was called pay to public key hash, or P2PKH. These are the addresses that usually start with the number 1. The owner got their Bitcoin and then did the single most profitable thing you could do in crypto, nothing. For 14 years, these wallets sat silent, while Bitcoin went from a hobby to a global asset. Then came the big move. The first thing analysts noticed was the precision. This wasn't chaotic. It was a coordinated surgical operation. Exactly 10,000 BTC moved from each of the 8 wallets at the same time. This wasn't someone who just stumbled upon an old hard drive. This was the work of a single entity who knew exactly what they were doing. Now, for the critical question, where did the money go? The rumors claimed it was sent to an exchange like Coinbase or an OTC desk to be sold, but the blockchain is public and a transaction this big can't hide. When analysts checked the destination addresses, they found something that defied all expectations. The 80,000 BTC wasn't sent to an exchange. It was sent to 8 new, freshly created addresses. And here's where it gets really interesting. These new addresses weren't the old legacy type. They were modern SegWit addresses, the kind that start with BC1Q. This detail is the key to understanding the whale's real motive. Moving from a legacy address to a native SegWit address isn't just a transfer, it's a major security and efficiency upgrade. SegWit was one of the most important upgrades in Bitcoin's history. Native SegWit addresses are more efficient, which means much lower transaction fees, a big deal when you're moving billions. But more importantly, they offer better security and support more complex transactions, like multi-signature setups. The most critical piece of evidence is that after the 80,000 Bitcoin arrived in these new SegWit wallets, they just stopped. They are still sitting there today, unspent. This one fact completely debunks the whale dump story. This wasn't a sale, it was a migration, a move from an old digital vault to a new state-of-the-art digital fortress. So if it wasn't a sale, what prompted such a big move? Another clue might be some strange activity targeting these old wallets. In the months before the transfer, the dormant wallets were getting hit with spam transactions containing weird, legal style messages. While these notes are harmless, they may have been a wake up call for the owner. Seeing your ancient high value addresses suddenly get this kind of attention could have been the final push needed to move the assets somewhere more secure and private. The whale wasn't running for the exit, they were fortifying their castle. This forensic analysis completely changes the story. The market reacted to a phantom dump that never happened. The real story, written on the blockchain, was one of security and long-term thinking. Which brings us to the next mystery. We know how they did it, but we still don't know who they are. We're just getting started here. We've peeled back the first layer, but the biggest questions about the owner's identity and their ultimate plan are still ahead. If you're getting value from this investigation and want more content that goes beyond the headlines, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Knowing this was a security upgrade, not a market dump, makes the owner's identity even more fascinating. Who has the skill and patience to pull off a move like this after 14 years? The community has theories, and we need to separate fact from fiction. The biggest rumor pointed to a major institutional player, Galaxy Digital, the crypto giant run by Mike Novogratz. News outlets and analysts started reporting that the 80,000 BTC had been moved to Galaxy to be sold. It seemed to make sense. An early whale wants to liquidate a huge position without crashing the market, so they use an over-the-counter OTC desk at a firm like Galaxy. This theory exploded when Galaxy Digital released its third quarter 2025 financial results. A single line in the press release noted record trading volumes, partly because of the sale of more than 80,000 Bitcoin on behalf of a client. For many, this was the smoking gun, case closed. When Mike Novogratz was asked about it, he gave a coy, "We don't talk about our clients" response, which just fanned the flames. But this is where our on-chain data is so important. As we established, the 80,000 BTC from our whales wallets weren't sold. They were moved to new private addresses where they still sit. So what about Galaxy's statement? The answer is we might be looking at two completely different events. It's very likely that Galaxy Digital did handle a separate massive 80,000 BTC sale for a different whale that same quarter. The crypto ocean is big, and there's more than one Leviathan. The market just seems to have mixed up two separate huge events, our whale's security upgrade and another whale's giant OTC sale. So, if it's not a Galaxy client selling off, who is it? This leads to our next theory, which comes from some on-chain sleuths. This one points to a man named Christian Olivier Janssens. For those who don't know deep Bitcoin history, Janssens is an influential early adopter and miner from 2010. He was a known Bitcoin millionaire and a prominent voice in the community, even serving on the board of the original Bitcoin Foundation. The speculation around Janssens comes from the fact that he fits the profile of very early, very rich, and technically skilled Bitcoiner. Some online researchers have tried to connect his known activities from the early 2010s to these wallets. The theory also gets spiced up with unconfirmed rumors linking him to European royalty. But let's be clear, there is no public evidence linking Christian Olivier Janssens to these specific 80,000 Bitcoins. It's a compelling theory, but it's just that, a theory. This brings us to the most likely, if least dramatic possibility: the owner is a complete unknown. They're one of the few anonymous geniuses who understood Satoshi's vision from day one. They set up a mining rig, stacked a fortune, and went dark. For 14 years, they practiced the ultimate form of diamond handed hodling, watching from the shadows as their experiment became a financial revolution. They have no interest in fame, they are a true cypherpunk, a ghost in the machine. Their recent move wasn't a call for attention, but the opposite: an attempt to retreat even deeper into the shadows. Of course, there are wilder theories. Could a hacker have finally cracked the private keys? Some have suggested this. But the methodical nature of the transfer, the move to secure SegWit addresses, and the fact the coins haven't moved again makes a hack very unlikely. A thief would have run to an exchange or a mixer, not to a new set of clean wallets to sit dormant again. This was an owner, not a thief. Ultimately, the identity of the $8 billion whale is still a mystery. But every theory points to the same kind of person: someone incredibly patient, technically skilled, and playing the long game. And to understand their actions, we have to understand their motive. Why now? After 14 years of silence, what made them finally act? Understanding why this $8 billion move happened now is the key to the whole story. The timing isn't a coincidence. It's a direct response to a new emerging threat. The whale's motive wasn't greed or panic, it was foresight. They were future-proofing their fortune against the biggest threat to modern cryptography: quantum computing. To get this, we have to go back to the wallet types. The whale's original 80,000 bitcoins were in old legacy P2 PKH addresses. For years, people thought that as long as you never spent from an address, your funds were safe because your public key was hidden. The public key would only be revealed when you made a transaction. But this has a huge flaw in a world with quantum computers. The cryptography that secures Bitcoin is called ECDSA. For a regular computer, it's impossible to get a private key from a public key. But quantum computers are a different animal. An algorithm called Shor's algorithm is theoretically capable of breaking ECDSA. It could take a public key and figure out the private key, giving an attacker total control. For years, this was just a science fiction threat. But with recent breakthroughs, the timeline for a quantum computer that could threaten crypto is getting shorter. This creates a scary scenario for people holding old Bitcoin. The moment they go to spend their coins, their public key is broadcast to the network and sits in the mempool for about 10 minutes. For a powerful quantum computer, 10 minutes is more than enough time to grab the public key, derive the private key, and steal the funds before the original transaction is ever confirmed. Even worse is the idea of a harvest now, decrypt later attack. Hackers are already collecting the public keys from every Bitcoin transaction ever made. They're building a massive library of them, just waiting for the day they can turn on their quantum machine and crack them all at once. An estimated 25 to 30% of all Bitcoin is potentially vulnerable to this kind of attack. Our Satoshi era whale, sitting on a fortune in these aging wallets, would have known this. They were sitting on a treasure chest secured by a lock that, while strong today, could be obsolete tomorrow. The spam messages they were getting were probably a rude reminder that their addresses were being watched. Their solution was both elegant and decisive: move everything to native SegWit addresses. Modern SegWit and Taproot addresses are better protected against this threat. By moving the funds now while it's still safe, the whale has neutralized the quantum threat to their holdings. They swapped out the old locks for new quantum-resistant ones. This wasn't just a transfer, it was a cryptographic escape plan. Beyond security, this move also signals a shift from just hoarding to active long-term wealth management. Consolidating funds into new modern wallets makes the fortune much easier to handle. This could be the first step in a huge multi-generational estate plan. Setting up complex trusts or foundations is much easier with funds in modern addresses that can support features like multi-signature controls. A multi-sig wallet, for example, could require keys from several people, like family members or trustees, to approve a transaction. By moving to SegWit, the whale has unlocked these powerful tools. They are no longer just a hodler, they're an architect, designing a structure to preserve their wealth long after they're gone. This reveals a highly intelligent, patient, and security-conscious person who is thinking decades ahead. They didn't move because they lost faith in Bitcoin. They moved because their faith is so strong they're taking huge steps to secure their place in its future. So, after following the money and debunking the rumors, what's the final verdict on the $8 billion whale? The evidence points to one conclusion: this wasn't the disaster everyone feared. It was a masterclass in preserving digital wealth. We saw a hyper-intelligent early pioneer upgrade their digital fortress. They saw the distant storm of quantum computing on the horizon and calmly moved their generational wealth to higher ground. This was less whale alert and more cypherpunk changing the locks. What this tells us about the owner is that they don't see Bitcoin as a speculative chip to be dumped. Their actions show deep conviction. They are a patient steward of a fortune, treating their Bitcoin as digital property to be preserved for generations. Their 14 years of silence wasn't a lost wallet, it was incredible discipline. Their recent move wasn't panic, it was foresight. The implications for the market are huge. First, this was an amazing real world stress test for Bitcoin's maturity. The fact that the market absorbed the fear of an $8 billion sale without collapsing shows a level of resilience that didn't exist in past cycles. The ocean is finally deep enough that even a Leviathan can't capsize the boat. Second, while the Galaxy Digital sale was a different story, the rumors highlight a bigger trend: the institutionalization of Bitcoin. The infrastructure to handle massive transactions now exists, and early holders are starting to use it for security, estate planning, or eventual careful sales. This event marks a new chapter in the great wealth transfer of our time. This presents a philosophical crossroads for Bitcoin. Some purists might see any interaction with institutional finance as a betrayal of the cypherpunk ethos, but others see it as a necessary evolution. For Bitcoin to be a truly global asset, it needs this bridge between its revolutionary roots and the world of established wealth. This whale showed it's possible to embrace modern security without giving up self-custody. They didn't hand their coins to a bank, they just upgraded their own. So what's next? For now, the 80,000 Bitcoin sits silently in their new SegWit vaults. Maybe they'll stay there for another 14 years, or maybe this was just the first move in a much longer game of wealth planning. The mystery isn't over. In a way, it's only gotten deeper. This wasn't the end of a story, but the start of a new chapter. In the end, the awakening of the $8 billion Satoshi whale wasn't an apocalypse. It was a quiet, brilliant move by one of Bitcoin's original pioneers to secure their legacy for the quantum age. It's a powerful reminder that in crypto, the biggest stories are often the ones happening in silence, written not in headlines, but in the code of the blockchain itself. This investigation is far from over, and the world will be watching this whale for years to come. What do you think their next move is? Are they a lone genius, an institution, or someone we haven't even heard of? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you're subscribed for more investigations into the biggest mysteries in crypto. Thanks for watching.